TLO, what's poppin'? We are on Twitch. We are not live, but you can leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notification bells. Let's continue to grow the family from Chicago to the UK. Now, I am trying to grow my second channel, so I don't know if this is going on my first channel or my second channel right now. But eventually, I think I'm going to make my second channel all music reactions. You feel me? All straight music. I think that's what I'm going to do with the second channel. And then the first channel is going to be, you know, vlogs, documentaries, all the good stuff. And if the music is especially lit, it'll go on my first channel. Simple. Let's get into this. Diana, the Night She Died, conspiracy documentary. Now, I feel like I should know way more about Princess Diana. And I know nothing. I don't even know how exactly she died. This is sad. So this is just going to be a learning experience, YouTube. Thank you. Shout out to Real Stories, man. They got some of the best documentaries. Yeah.
I feel this is the most dangerous phase in my life. He's planning an accident in my car. Brake failure and serious head injury in order to make the path.
In October 1996, Princess Diana predicted her own death in this letter to her butler, Paul Burrell. 2 weeks ago, he released the letter, blanking out the name of the person Diana believed was plotting her murder.
The problem that the establishment will have is that they have covered up the inquest, never been an inquest. They have not allowed a public inquiry into what happened to Diana in this country. And that has fueled already conspiracy theories for the last 6 years.
Wait a minute. So she wrote a note prior to dying about who was doing it and how she was going to die.
And what today's letter will do is simply give credence to the view that there was more to it than meets the eye, and we should have some form of formal investigation.
There was an official French inquiry into the deaths of Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed, an inquiry that ruled out foul play. But 6 years on, there's still been no inquest in Britain. The Coroner's Act states there has to be an inquest if bodies are brought back here for burial, and that is what happened on August the 31st, 1997. The Act says the inquest has to be held as soon as practicable. The Tatler is the magazine of the rich and chic. It's close to the establishment, but its editor is now leading a campaign for that inquest.
Why has the most famous woman, possibly in the 20th century, who died in mysterious circumstances, not have what she's legally entitled to, which is an inquest? I mean, it is an obligation under the law. It's not a nicety. It's not something which we might feel was...
Yeah, this has to be done by law.
...polite or decent to do. It is a legal obligation.
I ain't gonna lie, Princess Diana was fine. She looked good. Salute. R.I.P.
At 20 minutes past midnight on the 31st of August 1997, Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed set out from the Ritz Hotel in central Paris. And of the 4 people in her Mercedes, only the bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, would survive.
So that's the name she crossed out, or the butler crossed out.
2 hours after the crash, French police arrested 7 paparazzi for manslaughter. Their high-speed chase had caused the deaths. 30 hours later, the French authorities changed the story dramatically. Now the fault was the driver's. Henri Paul was drunk and on medication. Following a French government inquiry in 1999, this explanation remains the official cause of the accident and the deaths of Diana, Dodi, and their driver. But now we know that the
bodyguard, his life has been hell from that point on. It probably, well, maybe Is he alive still?
The official version is deeply flawed.
The investigating magistrate and the prosecution wanted to come to an end because there was too much pressure, because no one would know the real truth anyway, so it had to be stopped. So it was stopped, and of course, not everything has been inquired on.
We've been allowed to film the 27 volumes of confidential evidence the French inquiry gathered. None of these documents have been seen before. The files raise a number of very worrying questions about the inquiry. Why was the scene of the accident scrubbed clean and opened within 4 hours of the crash, destroying valuable forensic evidence? Why was the...
Was this set up? Like, this sounds very deep and intricate, like an intricate setup.
Traffic police investigation not included in the official inquiry report? Why was the first witness on the scene ignored and silenced by the police? Why was the autopsy carried out on Henri Paul so blatantly inaccurate? And why were the Secret Service connections of both Henri Paul and another key witness never properly explored? One of our discoveries was this photograph of the Mercedes and its occupants taken just seconds before the crash. Many vital questions have never been properly pursued, let alone answered. And that appears to be no accident.
Jeez. That pole did not give. That's tough.
In July 1997, Princess Diana and her children spent 2 weeks in Saint-Tropez as guests of the Al Fayeds. She was a free woman, just divorced and just out of a 2-year love affair. Three weeks later, Diana went back, without her children, to join the Al Fayed family on their new £12 million yacht, the Johnny Cal. During the cruise, Diana made very public her new romance with Dodi Al Fayed. The couple gave great headlines. Princess of the Paradox, Diana yo-yoed between posing for stills and pleading for privacy. On Saturday, the 30th of August,
Shout out to White Claw. It makes a lot of things possible.
Diana, Dodi, and bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones flew by private plane from Sardinia, where the Johnny Cal had moored.
Just off bat, I know nothing about nothing, so I feel like the bodyguard and her had something, but he got jealous. This is just my initial thoughts, and set something up for her adored Yara.
They were bound for Paris, where they were met at the airport by paparazzi, including photographer Fabrice Chasserie. His pictures caught a moment in history.
Là, on voit Trevor et Keith Winfield qui descendent de l'avion.
Okay.
Avec des bagages.
The first time the four people who would drive in the doomed Mercedes ever met.
Là, nous, à ce moment-là, on était à peu près vers au niveau de la douane.
Dang, all four of them and the Mercedes. That's crazy.
Pareil. Là, on aperçoit Henri Paul.
Dodi was close to Henri Paul, deputy head of security at the Ritz. He is one of the key personalities of the night and a man with a complicated past.
Henri Paul, who was the second in charge of security at the Ritz Hotel and was sort of press ganged into being the chauffeur that night at the last minute, he was a long-standing agent for MI6, an agent in terms of supplying information to MI6 about the goings-on in the Ritz Hotel in return for cash. And he'd been working for MI6 since, well, I'd seen his file for the first time in 1992. And from memory, he'd been working for MI6 for a few years prior to that.
The Secret Service connection was confirmed by Henri Paul's best friend, Claude Garrec.
Moi, j'ai toujours su qu'il avait des rapports avec les services secrets, mais dans le cadre de son travail. Pas dans un cadre d'aller trahir qui que ce soit, ou de monter des opérations à son compte. Ça, c'est complètement, encore une fois, fantaisiste.
C'est ça, c'est le fait qu'il occupe cette fonction dans cet hôtel qui l'a mis en rapport.
Évidemment.
Et anglais?
Mais anglais, de tout, je veux dire...
Tout type de service secret.
Arabe, israélien, tout ce que vous voulez, je veux dire.
Yeah, the Ritz in France, I mean, that's high profile stuff.
Non, cet hôtel-là n'a pas spécialement une clientèle plutôt qu'une autre.
All over the
The
world.
inquiry faced a politically sensitive issue, deciding how much of Henri Paul's past it could reveal. And this was not the only difficult decision. Henri Paul accompanied Diana and Dodi to the Villa Windsor, the mansion Edward VIII and Mrs. Simpson had lived in Paris, a property the Al Fayed family had bought.
It's beautiful.
I think she was aware that she was a potential Duchess of Windsor, a sort of loose cannon who they were going to watch very carefully, and she was not averse to upsetting them, and I think she quite enjoyed how much the affair with Dodi would upset everybody back at Buckingham Palace, as indeed it did, and a bit of in-your-faceness was in her nature.
And she was a rebel against the man, against the powers that be.
They drove to Dodi's flat. Number 1 Rue Arsène-Osé, near the Étoile.
Honestly, just listening to this so far, I can see how there's so many different conspiracy theories. Like, just off 9 minutes, I got like 3 or 4. Like,
He had booked a table at a smart Parisian restaurant, but at 9:45, he cancelled because there was a crowd outside.
smooth. I'm not gonna lie, this is a W setup. W. Straight from here to here, or from here to here. W.
Diana and Dodi returned to the Ritz, the great hotel owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al Fayed. The couple ate in the restaurant. She had sole, he had turbot, and then they went up to the £6,000 a night Imperial Suite. Previous
6,000. The rawest apartment, condo, living space downtown Chicago, River North, is 6,500. That's great. Not rawest, but like, it's nice.
His occupants included Hermann
month.
Goering, Winston Churchill, and Woody Allen. Henri Paul left work at 7 p.m. 2 hours later, he was asked to return to the Ritz.
Okay.
Henri
Why?
Paul's ultimate boss at the Ritz is also the owner of Harrods in London. Mohammed Al Fayed still ponders what happened that night.
Dodi called me. It was about 12 o'clock. He said, I'm going now to the apartments. And he told me, it's a lot of paparazzi. I don't know what they do. The Place Vendôme is full of people. I told him, please, it's so dangerous. Just stay in a hotel. Everything is there. No need for you to go out. He told me, I think I will follow your advice. Why?
I used to work at a hotel, and they would want us to say sometimes for, if we were working early in the morning and we worked a late shift. And I used to hate staying at the hotel that I worked at. For some reason, I just couldn't get good sleep. But this is the Ritz. I mean, hey, everything is free, right?
After Dodi assured me that he's not going to go out, Henry Paul gone to him at 12 o'clock after Dodi talking to me and convinced him, no problem, we're gonna go from the back entrance. Everything is okay, don't worry, I know the way. And please, you know, because you have already prepared everything there, change Dodi's mind.
Sounds like setup.
Dodi followed him up.
Second in command of security got his mind changed on a potential security breach or hazardous issues.
And he said because all the arrangements there, they have the champagne, they have the party there in their pub.
Henri Paul, part-time MI6 man, would help Dodi devise a plan to outwit the paparazzi. This amateur video is the only record of what was happening outside at the front of the Ritz.
Someone's out, they're very important.
Tourists and paparazzi wait for the glamorous couple. Henri Paul tells...
If you're on the e-commerce or dropshipping business, check it out.
Yes, man. Paparazzi, man. I mean, they got to do their job. They got to pay their bills and provide for their family, but they do be overstepping boundaries.
The couple will be leaving soon in this, their Mercedes. 5 minutes later, the clever ploy, a second Mercedes pulls up by the back door of the Ritz. Henri Paul, Princess Diana, Dodi, and Trevor Rees-Jones get in. Paul takes the wheel. Meanwhile, at the front of the Ritz, people...
If there's a driver, why is Paul driving? Your security, just sit in the front seat.
People scramble into their cars, realizing they've been fooled. Using two Mercedes might not be vintage James Bond, but it gave Diana and Dodi's car a head start.
Chasing Princess Diana!
The quickest way from the Ritz to Dodi's flat was up the Champs-Élysées, but at the Concorde, the car turned left instead of right. It then raced along the riverbank of the Seine. It was now actually going away from Dodi's flat. But the French inquiry never asked why they were taking this route.
Yeah, it is a mystery why they were where they were, because there are many different ways of getting to the apartment that they were going to at the top of the Champs-Élysées without going via the Champs-Élysées. Where they were, it's inexplicable.
Our access to the files reveals that most witnesses did not see the actual crash because they were either at the entrance or the exit of the tunnel. It's amazing that one crucial witness who was behind the Mercedes was ignored by the inquiry. His name is Eric Patel.
Non, je commence à rentrer dans le tournant. Là, il y a des appels de barre. Parce que la voiture, bon, c'est vrai qu'elle roule assez vite quand même. J'avais pas conscience, quoi. Et j'entends comme à un moment où elle arrive à ma hauteur, j'entends comme une implosion. Et malgré mon pot d'échappement, ce que je vous racontais, j'ai entendu cette implosion.
Patel was not the only person to hear a strange noise.
Clive Guravoodoo, who was on the bridge above the Alma Tunnel, he and also was a chauffeur, and his car was parked, and he was waiting for the people he was waiting for to come out of their restaurant or cinema or something, and he was having a cigarette on the bridge over the Alma Tunnel, and he heard this car coming towards him, and he heard a very loud noise, and his conclusion, I think, was that the person driving that car had actually engaged neutral and then pressed the accelerator. That was the sound of a racing engine, not in gear,
okay.
Which he described.
Et comme je venais d'avoir ma moto, je croyais que c'était la mienne. Donc qu'est-ce que je fais? Je ralentis, je regarde si c'est ma moto qui déconne ou etc. Et à ce moment-là, j'entends un grand boom. C'est la voiture qui s'était éclatée contre le poteau avant.
So what did he accidentally do? Slap it in neutral? It's still crazy to me how you can put a driving car that's in drive into neutral without pressing the brakes or nothing. At least American, you can.
Henri Paul and Dodi Al-Fayed died almost instantly.
Okay. My bad if y'all hear it clicking.
Et donc je prends la personne qui est à l'arrière, donc pas sur le siège, mais côté qui est affalé contre le passager arrière, qui est accroupi sur le passager, sur le dossier du passager avant, au sol, et je la prends pour la mettre en arrière. Et à ce moment-là, la tête me tombe en arrière. Et je vois du sang qui coulait de son oreille et du nez. Et sur le coup, c'est marrant, je me suis dit, mais je connais cette personne.
Patel went to this phone box and rang the emergency services. Then he went to the nearest police station. He was badly shaken.
I can imagine. Princess Diana.
Il y avait une information, vous savez, pour les papiers, etc. Et je les prends, je les jette. Et lui, le réflexe qu'il a, c'est qu'il appelle d'autres personnes pour essayer de me calmer. Mais plus on essayait de me calmer, plus je m'énervais parce que je disais, mais merde, c'est... Et eux, ce qu'ils ont fait, ils m'ont maîtrisé. Ils m'ont mis les menottes et ils m'ont mis dans un bureau. Attendez, on va chercher le...
So, once again, the police was worried about the wrong thing.
L'inspecteur qui s'occupe de ça et voilà.
Princess Diana was very badly hurt when she hit the back of Trevor Rees-Jones's seat, but she was not trapped in the metal. Under a flash, the full damage is clear.
Dang.
At 20 to 1 in the morning, Paris Chief Constable Pierre Masson...
It's crazy, they hit that pole, it turned the whole Benz convertible. It's no longer a hard top. The roof was gone off. Not gone, but detached from the car.
Was told of the crash. He woke his boss, the Minister of the Interior, and then made for the tunnel. Princess Diana was lifted out and put in one of the 3 ambulances that had arrived by 12:40. By 2 a.m., Police Chief Massonny and the French Minister of the Interior became worried because Diana's ambulance had still not reached the hospital.
Stop it. An hour and 20 minutes later in France, the hospital hasn't reached the hospital? Come on. You're joking. It can't be that far.
It stopped twice, in fact. First 1 kilometer from the tunnel, and then on the bridge just 300 yards from the hospital.
Wow.
The French press were told this was because Diana's blood pressure was so low. It took over 1 hour and 10 minutes for Diana.
So is that what normally has to happen when blood pressure gets low, the ambulance stops? I've been in an ambulance before. My blood pressure was low. It did not stop. It kept going.
Diana to reach the hospital, a distance of...
Wow. More conspiracy theories coming. They're all pending. This is crazy.
The inquiry never raised the disturbing question. Did this delay almost guarantee Diana would die?
Definitely.
Cette nuit, la princesse de Galles a été victime à Paris d'un accident de la circulation à grande vitesse. Elle a été immédiatement prise en charge par le SAMU de Paris qui a effectué la réanimation initiale. À son arrivée à l'hôpital de la Pitié-Salpêtrière, elle présentait un choc hémorragique gravissime, d'origine thoracique, puis rapidement un arrêt cardiaque. Une thoracotomie d'urgence a mis en évidence une plaie importante de la veine pulmonaire gauche. Malgré la fermeture de cette plaie et un massage cardiaque externe puis interne de 2 heures, aucune efficacité circulatoire n'a pu être rétablie et le décès a été constaté à 4 heures du matin.
Soon after, the paparazzi were arrested.
But didn't the dude, the first witness, say like she said she was bleeding from her ears and her nose? So yeah, it could have been.
Came the first guilty party. With the snappers behind bars, the police took no notice of what Patel was saying. He had seen no paparazzi around him or around the Mercedes, but he was surprised to find himself bundled into a van in handcuffs and taken to Paris police headquarters.
Why?
Et donc, il y a
I know you're just a witness, but of course they're gonna do that.
qui est venu, dont je ne dirai pas le nom. Et qui m'a dit simplement qu'il valait mieux pas que je me fasse connaître. Et c'est tout. Il m'a lancé tellement cette menace. Moi, je ne savais pas qui c'était à ce moment-là.
The information provided by Patel leads us to believe the official was Chief of Police Massoni. We put this to Mr. Massoni, but he has never responded.
Et puis voilà, ils disent que ça, c'est pas comme ça que ça s'est passé. J'ai compris,
Ils vous disent c'est pas comme ça que ça s'est passé.
Mais ce qu'ils voulaient exactement, ils me l'ont fait.
Mais quand ils vous disent...
Mais ce qu'ils voulaient exactement, ils me l'ont fait.
Mais quand ils vous disaient c'est pas possible, ils vous disaient ils vous suggéraient la façon dont ça avait pu se passer?
Non, comme si j'étais pas là. J'avais jamais rien vu, etc.
Just totally ruled whatever he said out.
That night, the police briefed the press that Patel was lying. Parry Match's chief reporter had the story from Patel's lawyer 3 days later.
Il est arrivé le 3e ou 4e jour et nous avons une conversation de 2 heures. Donc j'aurais pu être beaucoup plus actif là-dessus, mais je me méfiais, je ne sais pas pourquoi. Les choses sont les plus faciles me semblent.
As you shouldn't.
Toujours inquiétantes. C'est vrai, quoi, il faut le dire. Donc voilà, maintenant je sais que Patel... Qu'est-ce que je sais sur Patel? Je sais qu'il est allé dans ce commissariat et je sais qu'il a été interrogé par la brigade criminelle et par qui. Je sais exactement par qui.
By suppressing Patel's evidence, the French could blame the photographers.
But why would they want to do that, though? When there's clearly something else going on, don't you want to know the truth? Like, what's really going on? Like, I'm lost. I'm not lost. I'm just,
Early September, Patel's lawyer asked the inquiry to hear his client. They only agreed to do so 7 months later. Then the inquiry asked the police to explain why Patel's original statement had been lost.
Sauf que, effectivement, s'il a été entendu par la police, il devrait y avoir un procès-verbal qui apparemment n'existerait pas, ou en tout cas qui n'aurait pas été produit.
Bon, et ça vous inspire quoi, ça, le fait que...
Ça m'étonne énormément, d'autant que j'ai toujours pensé que, pour diverses raisons, que M. Patel disait la vérité. Alors
Why would he lie? I mean, yeah, okay, I get why would he lie, but like, he was actually there, he was shocked, why would he lie? Yeah, I get, that's what I want to say.
Je ne comprends pas très bien qu'on n'ait jamais pris en compte son témoignage.
The police first claimed Patel was a liar, and second, that he didn't speak clearly enough. Yes, there had been a call to the emergency services as Patel claimed, but the caller said he was speaking from Almont-Marceau, not Alma-Marceau. No such place as Almont-Marceau exists.
Come on now.
Harrods' head of security had worked at Scotland Yard for 26 years.
My first concern was I'd learned that the bodyguards had decided not to deploy a backup vehicle, protection vehicle, which was contrary to all of our own rules. That surprised me greatly.
Yeah, but they was trying to backdoor y'all. Remember, they was trying to be incognito?
I was also very surprised when I learned, particularly from television footage, that the French police had not isolated the tunnel to preserve it for evidence. Whether this was something other than a traffic accident or not, something of this magnitude involving Diana, Princess of Wales, this scene should have been preserved.
Yeah, facts. Here, I mean, well, in Chicago, if a crackhead overdosed, they preserving the scene. Like, come on, man.
These extraordinary images are from that night.
Vers 7h du matin, je suis rentré au tunnel. Au tunnel de l'Alma parce que
je voulais voir l'intérieur. Et je croyais, j'étais sûr que que c'était toujours fermé, mais c'était complètement ouvert. Et ça m'a beaucoup surpris, hein, parce que c'était Diana, elle était morte, c'était une grande affaire, et j'aurais pensé que la police aurait...
Maybe France just didn't want that type of publicity in their stuff, so they got it out as quick as possible. That's no...
Robert.
It's really honestly no excuse, though. What's happening, what I'm hearing is wild.
Fermer le tunnel pendant même plusieurs journées, mais c'était complètement ouvert vers 7 heures du matin.
Shortly before dawn, the Propriété de Paris, the green vehicles which sweep the streets, sprayed detergent in the...
Wow. So everything is fully gone clean to the T. We don't even have these in Chicago. What is this? A detergent spraying machine? What is...
Not the best way of preserving forensic evidence. Was it a cleanup or a cover-up?
The whole Diana factor does alarm the establishment.
I'm going to go with the second option at this point.
She has this volcanic capacity to cause great grief, dismay, lack of logic, cause great... grief, dismay, lack of logic, distract from the main purpose of the royal family, and certainly an inquest could throw up some uncomfortable questions.
For sure.
The most famous woman in the world had died.
And the tunnel where she passed away wasn't even blocked off.
Happy birthday!
As Diana's body was brought back to Britain, everyone here expected a thorough investigation, like an inquest. But France does not have public inquests. The government appointed a middle-ranking judge, Hervé Stéphan, to carry out an inquiry into what caused the deaths.
A middle-ranking judge? What? Okay.
He worked to rules that haven't changed much since Napoleon.
First of all, you have something which is called the secrecy of the investigation in France. That means that apart from the investigating judge and the parties being really limited to the lawyers and the prosecutor, no one has access to the prosecution, no one has access to the file, no one has access to the evidence. So the media don't know anything, the public does not know anything, and nobody can verify what's in the file.
So really, they really just up to guessing now. Everybody, the media, the public, just here to guess.
Over there, they have the inquisitorial system where an officer of the state conducts the inquiry with the assistance of the police. And of course, all officers of the state are paid by the state and beholden to the state. And one is, shall one say, in no circumstances skeptical as to whether or not there can be interference from above.
That's crazy. Hold on. So, because I sent an email out to Real Stories. This is Real Stories, so they got time to do a lot. I'm gonna send it again. Copy. Paste. Because I'm trying to get to them. Thank you for your message. We're trying to respond. Hey, if y'all watching this or y'all can see this video at any point, go spam them on Instagram. Go spam them that I'm trying to get in touch with them So I can just do reactions to real story documentaries because they got the best ones.
The standard accident investigation
With
carried
no
out
issue.
by French traffic police has never been made public and does not form part of the official report. But Patrick Chauvel, a well-known French photographer, did speak at some length to traffic police who carried out the original investigation.
They made their own investigation, of course, but then they had pressure from the Élysée, who told them to keep it low, you know, and they were not very happy about that because they made their own inquiry and that's their job. So they don't like to be
told what to
pushed,
do.
you know, when they're doing their job honestly.
36 hours after the crash, the French authorities changed their view. It was no longer the fault of the paparazzi, but a drink driving accident. An explanation they still insist to be true.
Good evening. The Paris prosecutor's office disclosed today that the driver of the car in which Princess Diana was fatally injured had an illegal blood alcohol level. He's said to have been more than 3 times over the French limit and twice the British one. There was also more evidence today about the speed at which the car was traveling when it crashed. A police source said the speedometer was found frozen at more than 120 miles an hour.
Within just over 24 hours of this crash, when it was put out that this was caused by a drunk driver, a person drunk as a pig, driving at 192 kilometers, they were false statements. They were certainly false statements then, and we know they're false statements now. And one of the reasons we know that is that the statement as to the drink drive was put out before Henri Paul's body samples had even been fully analysed. So they didn't have an analysis report of this, and yet it was put out that he...
This is crazy, bro. Something massive was being covered, like...
He was drunk, severely drunk. They also said that the speedometer of the car was stuck at 100...
Yeah, does that happen? Can they get stuck?
92 kilometers per hour. That was refuted immediately by Mercedes themselves, who said on impact the speedometer of the car reverts to 0.
Yeah.
Now, that's something they had to concede right away.
Yeah. That's what I had thought in my mind. Like, that doesn't happen.
The files show the inquiry tried to work out the speed of the car. Mercedes were paid to carry out crash tests, although their experts were never allowed to inspect the vehicle. But what is not in the files is another picture, which could have given a quick and clear answer to the speed, as Chauvel heard from the traffic police.
Well, this guide wellman was pissed of the pressure, and he said, I'm going to show you something. And if ever this goes bad, maybe I'll forget the photo in my office and you can sort of take it. And it was a photo taken by the flash. There's a camera, it's gone now, at the entrance of that tunnel. And you know those flash pictures when you go over 60 kilometers an hour, which is the speed limit. So the flash...
Meet your next pillow. Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube? I'll tell you. The problem with...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. Okay.
You can see the people in the car. It's just a frontal flash. So you can see the people in the car. You can recognize them.
Okay.
And on that picture, you could recognize absolutely everybody in the car. And it says the speed and the date.
And what were the people in the car like?
Well, the driver was normal, if I can say so. I mean, I didn't know his face before. He looks pretty... The guy on the right side looks tense. He seems a little bit afraid. Maybe the car's going too fast. And the people in the back are just laughing their heads off, having fun.
We are.
So wait, how fast was the car going?
Chauvel, why that photo had never been released.
When they made their first comment to the press, the official comment was that the flash didn't work at that time. But then somebody found out that the guy who was driving like 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, in his normal car, got 15 days later his ticket.
The files show
everything they say is getting debunked. Like in the court of law here, all you have to do is like make it so that whoever you're fighting against looks like a liar or something, and then anything they say is like, oh, well, we already proved his character is a liar. Like their characters are flawed. Everyone.
The final estimate was that the car crashed at around 65 miles an hour, but that was never published. 2 days after the crash, French police stressed the car's speed and how drunk the driver was, but the evidence for that is poor. These enhanced images are from the Ritz's own video. They show that 30 minutes before the crash, Henri Paul squats and ties his shoelaces.
Can't do that if you're drunk. Yeah, easily stumble forward to the side. I can't do that sober. Like, come on, man.
He transfers his weight gracefully from left to right and gets up again without a hitch or stumble. Paul spent 2 hours before setting off from the Ritz in the company of Trevor Rees-Jones.
Did Trevor Rees-Jones have any feeling that Henri Paul was drunk?
No, none whatsoever. He would, in fact, not have permitted in any shape or form anybody he had suspicion of having drunk to drive the car. That was an essential part of his job, to ensure the couple's security.
The autopsy on Henri Paul was carried out by Professor Dominique Leconte and Dr. Gilbert Pépin. They concluded that Henri Paul's blood had 1.74 grams of alcohol, twice the legal limit in Britain.
AKA they was paid to conclude that.
He also had legal medication and an average of 20.7% of carbon monoxide. The carbon monoxide reading is bizarre because such a high level leads to erratic behavior.
Pas possible. Car plus de 20% de monoxyde de carbone, on ne peut pas conduire. On ne peut pas se tenir debout. On vomit. On a mal à la tête. Donc on aura décelé chez M. Paul un comportement tout à fait anormal. Il n'aurait pas pu prendre la voiture puisque au moins le garde du corps l'aurait empêché de prendre le volant.
Yeah, and how would he even get 27% carbon monoxide? Like, how?
The first thing we wanted was an independent post-mortem, and that was denied without reason. They wouldn't give a reason why we couldn't have one. We then asked for an independent analysis of these body samples, and that was denied. We then asked whether we could be present at any subsequent examination of Henri Paul's body.
Denied.
And that was denied. All of these things without reason.
The police got a search warrant for Henri Paul's flat. His friend Garrick had the keys and watched.
J'ai eu quand même la nette impression que le rapport de perquisition était quand même un petit peu orienté. Parce que vous voyez, on a toujours fait on a toujours dit il y a une bouteille de martini dans le frigo alors qu'on ne buvait pas de martini. On disait qu'il y avait des bouteilles de Ricard. Tout d'un coup, il semblait que son bar était extraordinaire alors qu'il était tout à fait commun. J'en ai un moi-même à peu près du même ordre.
Et vous dites que vous sentiez qu'il était orienté parce qu'on cherchait...
They're trying to point him out to make him look like a drunk. Like a drunken alcoholic, like he gets drunk every day. So it makes him more believable.
Orienté, puisqu'on n'a jamais dit qu'il y avait par exemple 240 bouteilles de Coca-Cola.
Il y avait 240 bouteilles ?
Oui, de boîtes de Coca-Cola light, puisque c'était sa boisson préférée. Là, le rapport n'en fait pas état. Pourquoi ? Mais j'ai l'impression qu'à partir du moment où on ne voit que l'alcool et on ne voit pas les softs, bon, Ça me paraît quand même un peu...
It's very distorted because they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Name a better duo. You know what? This is a serious
orienté.
Et les médicaments? Ils ont cherché les médicaments?
Mais forcément.
Et alors?
Et alors, il n'y en avait pas.
Il n'y avait pas de médicaments.
The Paul family were denied access to the material in these bottles, their son's blood and urine samples. Backed by Al Fayed, they got 4 of Europe's top pathologists to examine the post-mortem report. They dissected the autopsy and listed 28 critical errors that made the procedure unreliable.
Yeah.
These included that the autopsy was not timed.
So it took too long for them to do the autopsy.
No proper description was given of how his body was identified. No explanation was given for the 20.7% of carbon monoxide.
Yeah, you would definitely know how it got in there, or what. How did you get that? Like, how did it get there? It would be in the report. Dang, there go that clicking. Okay, there's no clicking no more. Okay.
The final conclusions of the 4 pathologists were damning. The results on carbon monoxide in the blood are inexplicable as the attitude of Dr. Pepin and Professor Leconte, who continue to present arguments which have no rigor and no scientific value to justify their results. The hypothesis that there was a mix-up in the samples needs to be seriously considered.
Cheers, guys.
And that's being nice. A hypothesis that there was a mix-up in the samples. I'm gonna.
22.
That's being nice. Ain't no mix-up. Planted.
2 other corpses were in the morgue that night. The Paul family, backed by Al Fayed, sued the state to obtain their son's samples so they could do a DNA test to check it was really his blood. The French Attorney General took over the case, but so far the family has not succeeded.
Oh.
The judge said privately that the blood was the great mystery of the affair, but he didn't.
I don't understand. Like, just double check. It's very easy to double check. If y'all made a mistake, y'all made a mistake, but double check. These are people's families and brothers and sisters and mothers and aunties and uncles that are at stake here. It seems so simple, but
did not probe further. His similar failure to probe Henri Paul's security connections surprised Richard Tomlinson.
I do find it really strange that Judge Stephan didn't really... I mean, I was expecting him to go through in great detail all the details of the file, and I mean, you know, I could have given him enough information I could have...
Richard Tomlinson.
Given him enough information for him to have identified which file it was, and he could have. I mean, it takes a brave magistrate to do it, but he could have asked for a subpoena of the file through the British government and asked for the file, and there's mechanisms to do that. You could do that.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. You can whether MI6 would agree to it, I don't know, but if there was sufficient pressure, then they would have to. Yeah.
This
is higher than them. This is higher. This is high up, getting everything cut off.
This was only one of a number of
allegedly
lines of inquiry the French refused to pursue. For Mohammed Al Fayed, it was a personal tragedy, but it could also have become a business problem. Trevor Rees-Jones's lawyers wanted the inquiry to consider whether the Ritz and the firm that owned the Mercedes Etoile limousine might have been negligent. The Mercedes Diana used had been stolen 3 months earlier and its electronics ripped out. Had the repairs been properly carried out?
We tried.
That matters. That does matter now.
To reorientate the investigation on another way, especially...
Why would they use the stolen Mercedes though? Like, and the electronics have been ripped out. Like, that's a mistake in itself.
Towards Etoile Limousine and the Ritz. But by that time, the investigating magistrate and the prosecution wanted to come to an end because there was too much pressure, because no one would know the real truth anyway, so it had to be stopped. So it was stopped, and of course, not everything has been inquired on.
27 volumes of facts, speculation, and evidence reveal another enigma. Dodi had his mobile phone that night, and yet astonishingly, when the police logged all the possessions of the victims, they found he had no papers, no lighter, no cigarettes, and certainly no mobile phone. All that was on his body was 1,000 francs.
Did you get the impression that stuff had been found in the car which we were not told about?
Yes, they found stuff in the car, which was not especially unusual. In lots of car accidents you have dope. But the dope was not in the driver's hand, it was in the passenger, so what? But what they didn't like is the pressure. Suddenly the Élysée told them to keep it low.
A high-ranking police source confirmed to us Patrick Chauvel's claims that illegal drugs were found in the car and the existence of the speed camera photo, which has never been produced. Some evidence seems to have gone missing. Some evidence doesn't seem to have been followed up. In the files, we also found this photograph.
Look at this, man. Look at all of the stuff that's going on. Like, of course, there's a million conspiracy theories. Like, this alone, so far, I had 9 in the first 4 minutes. Now I have like 57. This is crazy.
Taken between 20...
The amount of negligence and just unprofessionalism that's all throughout this whole investigation is ridiculous, bro.
20 and 22 minutes past midnight.
There is one picture or two.
This is Princess Diana. This isn't a Jane Doe. Like, come on,
which is obviously taken from before the car. Somebody has to drive before the car to take that picture, especially since you see Trevor Rhys-Jones looking into the mirror. But I can't say exactly where that picture was taken. It was obviously taken somewhere in the tunnel, but I can't say if it's in the beginning of the tunnel or in the middle or after some sort of accident or whatever.
But it's taken in the Alma tunnel.
Yes.
So who took this photo? We may never know. 17 days after the crash, the paparazzi were no longer under arrest for manslaughter, but were still charged with failure to help the victims.
Failure to help the victims. Weren't they at the beginning and the end of the tunnel? They didn't even know what was going on. All right.
The inquiry had leaked Henri Paul was drunk. Then another new development, which appeared to explain how the accident happened. The police said they'd found debris from a white Fiat Uno in the tunnel. It was suggested the Fiat was in front of the Mercedes.
The Mercedes wing mirror was found at this point, with traces of another car's paintwork and shards of a Fiat tail light. The Mercedes was thrown into the right-hand wall, then hurled across into the 13th pillar in the middle of the tunnel.
The police started a massive search operation, but only questioned owners of white Fiat Unos in the Paris area. They drew a blank. But Al Fayed's detectives did better and tracked down this Fiat Uno. Its rear tail light had been fixed, and it belonged to a paparazzi. His name was James Anderson. His past was even more mysterious than Henri Paul's. James Anderson made no secret of the fact he had a white Fiat Uno when French television profiled him 3 years ago.
Okay. This seems logical.
Car c'est une voiture qui a 325 000 km maintenant. Une année, je fais quelques photos de M. Gianni Agnelli à Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat. Il se baignait sur son bateau, le Capriccia. Je fais quelques photos de lui. Le lendemain, il me reconnaît. Il revient dans le port de Saint-Tropez. Et je lui dis, j'ai à peu près déjà 200 000 km avec, alors que là, j'ai 325 000. Et il me dit, l'artiste, quand tu seras à 500 000 km, je te ferai un cadeau d'une voiture. Moi, je vais vous dire personnellement ce qui m'inquiète énormément aujourd'hui. Il manque 175 000 km et je me demande...
Very disturbing news.
Looks like a good show.
During the summer, Diana had been photographed by James Anderson. He was a paparazzi with political connections at the highest level.
See what I'm saying? He made that one phone call. He got political connections at the highest level. He made that one phone call and got everything busting, covered it up. Somebody owed that man a favor and got it done.
He was the official photographer to one French prime minister, and friendly enough with another, Lionel Jospin, to share a motorbike with him.
Pause.
Yet French Special Branch was so worried by his history, they'd started to investigate him, as one of their senior officers revealed to us.
Au mois d'août 97, nous avons pu apprendre qu'il avait passé plusieurs jours sur le yacht où se trouvait la princesse Al-Fayed, ce qui franchement n'est pas très normal, n'est pas très courant pour un journaliste. Il était sur le yacht même. Et pas une heure, mais il y aurait passé sans doute 2 ou 3 jours. Oui, ce sont des sources fiables.
Richard Tomlinson recalls a figure like Adanson in MI6.
The MI6 have a cadre of people who have their own profession, their own life, they do their own jobs. They can be barristers, they can be all sorts of things, who just happen to have a skill which is occasionally useful to MI6, and they kind of work on a short-term contractual basis for MI6. They had one guy who was a photographer, and his normal job was as a paparazzi photographer, but occasionally he would do work for MI6.
French security services had evidence Adanson was...
That's spooky. They are something else.
In the Alma Tunnel.
Et il se serait vanté.
They're just activating people in the field. He boasted later
dans son entourage, quelque temps après, d'avoir même donc photographié et même enregistré sans doute les derniers instants, du moins sous le pont de l'Alma, de la princesse Diana. C'est un témoignage qu'on a recueilli dans son entourage.
The widow of one of Adanson's friends confirmed he had boasted to them he was at the scene.
So...
Il m'a dit qu'il y était. Il nous a dit qu'il y était. Je suis venu, il a vu la prison et tout ça. Il n'a pas été pris par la police. Il est parti parce qu'il était malin.
So he got the bragging on it and speaking on it like he did.
Vraiment, James Adanson avait de très fortes intuitions. Il avait l'art d'approcher de nombreuses personnalités qui ensuite sont mortes subitement.
French Special Branch became interested in Adanson when they noticed he'd been the last person to photograph and one of the last to talk with Pierre Bérégovoy.
James Adanson pouvait sans doute ne pas travailler seul et être manipulé ou dirigé soit par un service ou des services, soit par une équipe qui, à un certain moment, pouvait être chargée d'éliminer ou de gêner ou de compromettre une personnalité, et Adanson faisait sans doute office d'agent de renseignement. On a évoqué les liens que pouvait avoir Adanson avec des services anglais ou services français. Cela n'a jamais été formellement prouvé.
I think I'm going to post this on my second channel, man, because real stories, sometimes they block. Sometimes they let you see, let it remain on your channel, and sometimes they block it fully. Like, I remember the Cray twins I did from Real Stories. They blocked it and they wouldn't let me, they just took it, it was gone. It was like they wouldn't unblock it or anything. So it depends on which one. So maybe this is a second chance, but this is gonna bust. I know. This is a good document.
Mais c'est une hypothèse qu'il ne faut pas exclure. Et puis il y a surtout les conditions absolument ahurissantes de sa mort.
In June 2000, Adanson apparently committed suicide by setting fire to himself in his car on this piece of army land.
I mean, I don't condone that, but hey, listen. The pressure built too high for you. You know what you did, man. That's a lot to live with. You was probably getting all type of threats. You was probably getting people coming at you left and right. My boy.
He left no suicide note. His body was found by French commandos.
And was it really that? Or was it somebody?
Friends and even the funeral director are very skeptical that Adanson really killed himself.
Yeah, see?
None of this was ever mentioned by the French inquiry.
Somebody got their get back for Miss Diana. Somebody got that get back. They spent the block on you, boy.
Under British law, there has to be an inquest into the death of any British subject who dies abroad in mysterious or unexplained circumstances. Now that was obviously
my nose was itching. Relax. Okay.
The case with Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed. But though they died in 1997, no inquest was opened until 2004. The royal coroner then did two things. First, he formally opened the inquest, and second, he asked the ex-commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Britain's top cop, if you like, Lord Stevens, to investigate how the French had investigated the crash. Lord Stevens took a team to Paris. He got access to all kinds of documents which investigators and journalists obviously found it hard to get to. And he said, rather cryptically, that there really was something wrong with the way the French had gone about the investigation.
Duh!
We've got new...
Even me. TLO, the reaction channel, will see that.
Witnesses and new forensic evidence.
But then we had another shock in June 2006.
Okay.
By then everybody thought Lord Stevens would soon issue his report, and everybody thought the coroner would finally open the inquest properly.
Nope.
But suddenly the coroner then announced that the inquests into Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed were simply too time-consuming, and he had to resign.
Another payment didn't hit, huh? That's crazy.
So we now find ourselves in the very strange position that there has to be an inquest. The inquest has been opened, but there is nobody to run the inquest.
That just seems so
James
far-fetched
Arnold
that nobody would step up and take it.
There was only one reason why there was pressure not to explore certain irregularities about the accident investigation. The first witness on the scene was ignored and deliberately discredited. A proper traffic accident investigation was apparently suppressed, and the victim's possessions had apparently vanished. The dead driver's autopsy was clearly flawed, yet formed the basis for the main conclusion.
This is like a summary of everything. I need to get in touch with Real Stories, man.
That drug driving was to
If y'all see this, get me in touch with Real Stories.
blame. The driver and another key witness had strong Secret Service connections, but these were never explored. To blame the driver, Henri Paul, as the French authorities have done, may be convenient, even politic.
Yeah, he can't even
but
defend
the true
himself.
causes of the crash are complex and murky.
Very.
The revelation that Diana predicted she would be the victim of a so-called accident has sparked even more calls for an inquest.
Yeah.
It's third-class treatment.
So what's going on, man? Did any of this ever happen? Like any of these inquests that, like, this is 2006, like it's 2022. Did we ever come to a conclusion of what's going on?
It's very difficult to get to the root of why they...
Because right now I'm a little pressed, and I need to know.
There are rather feeble excuses like, we're waiting for the French inquiry. Well, the French inquiry is over. There are feeble excuses like, we want to make sure we can get all the witnesses. Well, the same witnesses are there as ever have been there.
We certainly won't see an inquest open in 2006. We probably won't see an inquest open in 2007. And the best guess is that maybe it will open in 2008, 11 years after the crash in the Alma Tunnel.
It's ridiculous, man. TLO, leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notification bells. If you've watched this to the end, get me in contact with the Real Stories. Like, go tag my Instagram on their page. Like, just go do it, like, ridiculously, so they have to, like, say he's trying to react to your video. Say something like that. He needs permissions. Like, come on. I'm gone, yo. My child is awake.